Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for finally the announcement live stream, I guess, of Chelsea having a new owner. Now, it's not quite been made official yet, and I did want to wait for the announcement by Chelsea, but I feel like they're probably going to announce it tonight. Why is this so low anyway, this camera here? I feel like they're still going to announce it tonight, and I can't lie, I just want to watch the Conference League game later, and after that's a bit late. And tomorrow I've got plans. So yeah, that's why we're here today. It's basically as official as it gets without being official, because Premier League have last night confirmed that Todd Boehly and his consortium have passed their owners test. The UK government have approved of the sale today, and also the EU, or there has been a European approval granted. So we're kind of, the only thing that has to happen now is money has to flow. And once that money has flown, as weird of a word as that is in this context, then things will be official. And then finally, our sanctions, I hope basically straight away, will be lifted. That will be phenomenal. Sent into our chat. There you go. That will be phenomenal. Now, there's a lot of things that we'll get through. We'll talk about a little bit of a recap. How did Todd Boehly actually get here? What do we know about it? What do we know about the rest of the consortium? And then also taking it into what's going to happen now. Like, do we think it's going to be a good owner, a great owner, potentially a bad owner? And also what it means for this upcoming summer transfer window. Now, Con, I haven't had you on the stream in a little minute, so I'm very glad to have you back. Obviously, we were all a bit sad and are probably all still a bit sad that the era of Roman Abramovich has come to an end, which was, well, by far the most successful period and era in the history of this football club. But are you excited for the new era that begins now? Or is it still a mix of excitement and also concern for you, Con?
I tend to try to be a positive person anyway. So I'm excited, man. I love Roman, and that era was beautiful. You know, we've watched us win the Champions League twice, finished champions of the world. We've won the Premier League multiple times. Now, bro, we get to do it all again. New owner, let's go. And the difference is this time, he's actually got such a better Chelsea squad to deal with. He has Cobham. You know, our women's team's the best in the country by a landslide. So, you know, I'm excited, bro. It's hard not to be. I'm always wildly optimistic. But I'd rather be like that, you know.
100%, mate. I completely agree. What's the point in already being pessimistic when you don't even know whether it's going to go badly? Sure, it might go badly. But if it goes badly, we'll all be depressed and sad anyway. So why already be depressed months, years, whatever before, when we don't even know yet whether we have to be that? So I could not agree more with that sentiment. Pice, similar question to you. Is it more excitement for the new era, or is it still sort of sadness that the old era has come to an end? Well, what are your feelings now that we're as close as it gets to everything being completely official?
For me, it's more, I'd use the word curiosity, or curious to see how it's going to go down. I don't think I'm excited as such. I don't think he's gonna, you know, blow the roof off and sign amazing players and stuff like this. But what I do think is long term will be more sustainable. I think that whenever the rebuild of Stamford Bridge happens, I think that'll be good for getting external revenue streams in. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does in terms of commercializing Chelsea, in terms of the brands, the sponsors, because I think that's something we can all agree was never really a thing under Roman Abramovich. It was never fully tapped into, you know, the market of commercialization. So yeah, I'm of course I'm not negative about it, because I think, you know, I like him from what we've seen so far, but yeah, let's see what happens. It's going to be a long time, you know, in charge, at least 10 years before he can sell. They can sell as well, because I keep forgetting to mention Clearlake as well. Both Egbali and Feliciano were at the game, so I mean, let's see what happens. I guess the safe sort of haven of it is that they can't take debt out, or they can't do certain things, which makes me a lot more optimistic, I would say, because if they had not been in charge, I don't know if I could trust the private equity group as 65% owner of a club. It's just, it doesn't happen in other sports for a reason. Let's just say that.
Yeah, maybe so. At the same time, obviously, there's a few examples where similar things are the case in football. yeah, you could say maybe we shouldn't let it happen in football. That's certainly one way of looking at it. But considering they have been forced to guarantee certain things like not selling their stakes until 2032, obviously the whole guarantee of investment of the 1.75 billion pounds at least. I mean, obviously they can overshoot that, but that's the minimum they have to invest. So they're tied to certain things, which gives us a lot of security, in my opinion. But Clutch, similar question as I've asked to the other boys. Excitement, fear, concern. What's the overriding feeling at the moment?
I think cautiously optimistic is probably the best way to put it. Obviously, I mean, all signs point to us moving towards a better, more sustainable model, like Pius was talking about. How we're not going to go for instant success. We're not just going to buy players for the managers who might not be there. And if the manager doesn't perform one season, he's gone. I think that's a much better way to go about it. A lot of our problems come from that. I mean, it did bring us trophies, but it was never going to bring us a long-term success. It was always going to be success here, 2 years success, and then I think now us moving towards more of a Liverpool model where they look to back Klopp for that time. Yes, we may not be where we want to be for a couple of years, but I think that's how it needs to be if you want to have long-term success, like the Cities or the Liverpools. I mean, Cities obviously different because they just got buku bucks to spend, but I think we are doing good things, and I am cautiously optimistic. Can anything fail? Sure, but I don't want to put that negative vibe out there unless it starts going that way. So I'm more cautiously optimistic.
As am I. The only thing I'm not as cautiously optimistic about is me trying to share the screenshots that Pite sent me to share, because it basically I need to close Google Chrome, and I can't do that because then I'll be gone from here. So I'll need to figure out another way of doing that. Hopefully the other way of screen share still works. But let's quickly take a step back and let's just recap a little bit how we got to where we are, right? So go back to, what was it? It's February 24th, I think, is when Russia or Vladimir Putin decided to invade Ukraine. Obviously, in the following weeks, Europe, well, the Western world, shall we say, has taken sanctions against Russia and people with ties to Vladimir Putin, and that, unfortunately for Chelsea, included Roman Abramovich, obviously owner since 2003, and that basically forced his hand in having to sell the club. Now, he initially announced that he was going to sell the club and was going to keep none of the proceeds before he was ever actually sanctioned, but then the sanctions obviously hit the club in all sorts of ways. Didn't necessarily immediately impact us too drastically, because in terms of ticket sales, initially, obviously, the home games had already been sold. The tickets to those had already been sold for. But now, the last few weeks, whenever we played Premier League home games at Stamford Bridge, we were only playing at a capacity of like 25,000 people, which, of course, was disappointing. And now, the closer we got to the opening of the transfer window, the more of a harm it was in the sense of not being able to negotiate, not being able to be as active in the transfer window and starting to prepare the summer transfer window as we maybe would have liked. And it took us longer than I assumed, if I'm honest, longer than I assumed, at least when this whole process started, because we were 6 days away from the final official deadline. Sure, maybe that could have been extended if necessary. Obviously, they all tell us, no, it couldn't have been, but, I feel like there was a lot of scaremongering going on there, but hey, who knows? But obviously, we were in the process of 4 different bidders that made the kind of the final cut. Was it 5? And someone left quite early. I forget again who that was. But yeah, we obviously had, the Rickards, obviously. We had Todd Boehly, the Rickards, whole process going on, protest going on and everything. And then until they then thankfully pulled the plug. Martin Broughton from England and Stephen Pagliuca, American-Italian part owner of also Atalanta Bergamo, before Jim Ratcliffe got involved on the last day, trying to cause some havoc. Unfortunately, he didn't succeed in ruining everything. So that's good. And here we are now with Todd Boehly. Pice, would you say I've summarized that quite well?
Yeah, pretty much. I saw a report as well this morning, I think, from the New York Times. They was reporting that someone that was working on the Pagliuca bid said that they essentially their group pulled out because of the anti-Glazer clauses. So, I mean, if we ended up with Pagliuca, we could have been the next Glazers. So I guess that's something to be you know, how do I say it? Something to be thankful for, if that report is true.
Yes, so absolutely, mate, absolutely. And the fact that they called it, I mean, obviously, we don't know 1,000,000%, I guess, whether that's also being called exactly that behind the scenes, but at least that it was called that publicly is kind of amusing because obviously even other owners that are not to do in football know how bad of a set of owners the Glazers are for Manchester United. So that's quite amusing. Let me quickly get to this super chat here by Adrian. I appreciate it very much. I'm not quite sure how much Pice will be able to say about this, but his question is, Pice, is it true that you spoke to Finkelstein, of course, one of the people that's part of, in a way, part of Todd Boehly's consortium that are now buying Chelsea Football Club? If so, what did he say? Plus, is the news on whether this window will be on data, will be age-data driven recruitment plus Tuchel philosophy? Now, Pice obviously choose to what exactly you can respond to here, but you know,
Yeah, I mean, I've spoke to him for like the last probably, I don't know, month or so. Yeah, he's a really nice guy, and he cares a lot about the fan opinions, and it's not just one with big followers. I think he has an email which, if you go on if you're on Twitter and you go into his replies, you can email him. He always responds. He said that he wants to listen to fans' opinions. I mean, even recently, I said, so obviously at the games, if any of you go to the games in the chat, that I feel like there's not enough food stands around the ground in general. I think there's one burger stand in the whole sort of, obviously you've got the shopping centre, right? But the whole sort of surrounding area, there used to be like hot dog stands, burger stands. So I mentioned that to him and he said, yeah, that's something we're going to look into. So already that's really, really good. So yeah, he cares a lot about the fans. In terms of like the data approach, I mean, yeah, I've discussed that with him. I've said, I like your background in data and we've discussed some stuff on that, but like I don't know, I don't think that you're going to see much change this summer, right? I think with Marina in charge, she's probably going to stay. I think they may obviously try and already start kind of the new model in terms of trying to let Tuchel have more power, have more of a say, have more of a, who he wants rather than club targets as such. So I feel like that's what we've done the last few years. It's obviously the manager will always get a say, but they've never really kind of had the full power. I feel like Tuchel might get a lot of the
the
power
last
now
one they did
with
was
this.
probably Mourinho, and that's why we
Yeah, I
stopped
mean,
giving that power to managers because that went sour.
exactly. Yeah. So I mean, that's something to obviously be excited for if you're a backer of Tuchel. But yeah, I mean, yeah, pretty much. It will. I mean, just read the reports. Like there's so much information out there. I mean, obviously Daniel as well. He's tied to what he can say to me anyway because he's a part of the bloody bid. So yeah, it's not like we share it. Like he shares secrets with me, but yeah, we have been talking a lot. And I mean, as I said, there's an email if you want to talk to him as well. He likes to hear from fans.
There you go. There you go. Contact Pice if you want to get involved with that. Now, let's quickly take it again a little step back. Con. Now, I just meant to talk through almost where we were, where we've come from in terms of which other people were involved in this bid. Now, we will not know for the foreseeable future, for a fair few years to come, whether Todd Boehly ends up being a good or great or even bad owner, for sure. But from the options we were given in terms of the final 4/5 that made, I guess, the shortcut, and then also kind of Jim Ratcliffe added to that at the end, would you say, at least in your opinion, from what we know as of now, Todd Boehly was the best person to go for?
Yeah, for me, like Boehly always stood out because he was a guy who wanted the Premier League club for years. Everyone else who was linked to us, they've never really expressed their desire for a Premier League club before. And Boehly was passionate about it. Like you could find clips of him talking about the Premier League like 2-3 years ago. So I didn't want someone to buy Chelsea just because it was available. It's like, you know what, this could be good. I was someone who had a genuine interest, to want us, and Boehly has showed that throughout this whole time. He's shown that, so that's why I'm excited. I'm happy we got Boehly out of everyone else, because it seems like he's the one who wants us more than everyone else, and he doesn't have like a loser mentality. He doesn't strike me as somebody who just wants to make money. He seems a bit of a winner, and that's the mentality we need at Chelsea Football Club.
I agree, mate. It certainly does seem like that. I will, in the end, by the way, Pice, I'm just going to highlight the whole article and we'll just go through it. I just get the article up because that I should be able to share. But I'm not sure if it's going to be mentioned in that, but it's seemingly come out from, which I was not aware of, that he was called Werner, same like our team of Werner. But one of the owners of Liverpool, that is part of FSG, has said that he's actually been a long-time admirer of Todd Boehly, of what he's been doing with the LA Dodgers, and also that Todd Boehly got in contact with him and kind of has been picking his brains about how to run things in football in the Premier League. And, you know, if you're scared of things, the fact that our now new owner has been making sure to get a few hints and tips out of Liverpool. As much as you might not like that in the idea in general, Liverpool are a very well-run club. I mean, they have been expanding the stadium. They've been investing money. Maybe not always as big as Manchester United, Manchester City, and even ourselves to some extent. Only when they've made, obviously, big revenue from, selling like Coutinho and stuff. But whenever they buy smart and it works out for them. Like, how many Liverpool signings since Jurgen Klopp has taken over can you remember that were bad signings? I mean, I'm sure there were a couple, but the percentages of good to bad signings is certainly a lot better than it has been at Chelsea over recent years. So if you look at it that way, certainly good. But Clutch, would you agree with Con that from what we have had offered, shall we say, we went with the best one? And do you rate that he apparently got in touch with people at Liverpool to see how things go?
Yeah, I know it's going to be a controversial thing, but I think Liverpool is one of those models that if you're not a club that has a lot of money like a City or a United where you can just buy players whenever you want, I think that is the perfect model because it shows that you have a plan. There's not just throw things at the wall and hope it sticks, kind of like we have done with whether it be Lukaku or Torres or whoever you want to name there, many players. But I think it shows that we're looking into how we can make this club a serial winner in the future. And that's very good to me. Boehly has always stood out because of that reason, because he sounded like he wanted to do that. I know I say that you never take anything at face value, especially when somebody says something. Actions speak louder than words, but at sometimes I think a lot of the other people were just talking about like, yeah, we're willing to just put money into this club. And I know a lot of fans, especially here, want that. I know that. I get that. It makes sense. But at some point, it doesn't work. I mean, you look at United, they have almost infinite funds as well. It doesn't work for them. They're in shambles. It might change now that they have Ten Hag, but their board alone is going to keep them down for years. So
he seems as miserable as that whole club does in his first press conference. I don't think it will be any better. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but he seems so miserable and so unlikable. Did you see that video of when him and his bodyguard were like walking away from the Sky Sports people and like pushing them out of the way? And I was like, if they keep doing that, brilliant, because finally Manchester United will get some negative reporting in this country. So that'll be a positive, I guess.
But yeah, I think Liverpool is a model that we all can kind of, as much as like their fans are probably some of the worst you've ever seen, the way they're run is very good. Like Lauren said, they're a very good, well-run club, and they back Klopp to the fullest, which is what we need to do. We do need to back our manager so that we have that plan in place for the future. So that is why I've always been more on the Boehly side than anybody else.
Fair play. Ladies and gentlemen, by the way, we have over 300 people watching, which I massively appreciate. If you're new here, please be sure to subscribe. We're on the road to 15,000 subscribers. Not quite there. We did pass 14 though. So let's get there. Shall we set a new target? I don't know. Before preseason starts, I think we can get that done, ladies and gentlemen. So get subscribed if you haven't already. That would be absolutely brilliant. Tell your mates about it to subscribe as well. That'd be cool. And smash the like button as well, because it really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm and spreads these streams and videos out to more new people. And that's how us content creators grow. So please do hit that like button. Doesn't cost you money. Barely costs you any time. Now, let me just quickly, before we get to the article, to dissect things a bit deeper, let me quickly get to this comment here by Fantasy PGA Tour. So can someone elaborate a little bit on how this data-driven system works? Now, Pies can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just going to give it my best shot at how I understand that. It's basically, you look at how we play, you look at what we want, you look at what's required, and then you look at which players suit that by their stats. By stats, I don't just mean goals and assists, but by all sorts of data. What works for us and what do we need? And consistently go by that. Of course, while, being in close conversation with the manager, being in close conversation with scouts, and you need the scouts to figure out a lot of the data. Some of it obviously is just readily available everywhere, So what you need scouts for. But yeah, in the end, and then make decisions on the basis of that. Don't necessarily make decisions on, I don't know, who's going to bring the most revenue, who's going to do this, who's going to do that. Just who actually fits, who actually works, what do we actually need? Pies, would you go along with that kind of explanation of it?
Yeah, I mean, like I always find this like data system driven stuff quite funny because, like, all clubs have a data network. Like,
Yeah.
you know, whether it's as elite as and others as not, like it is a different story. Chelsea will have a data driven network. They will have scouts. They will have analytics they look at. It's just I feel like with Chelsea, they just look at kind of who's hot in the summer or who's hot and you know who's done well this. Like prime example, Darwin Núñez, right? Every big club is over him, right? Chelsea will look at his goals and assists, and Nkunku as well, been linked. They'll look at his goals and assists and think, oh, he looks brilliant. I reckon he'll do good, and they'll sign him. What I don't think they look at is external factors like style of play, like can they play in different formations? Can they? I don't know. Like, there's so many other factors that I just feel like our scouting system is so basic, and it's like they just shortlist a few names up and get whoever they can get essentially, and leave it up to Marina to see who she can negotiate. Like, I don't really think there's any planning behind it. That's how it's always felt with Chelsea. So it's like, you know what I mean? I think the only time I read a report which was suggested the opposite was actually like I think maybe a year and a couple years ago probably now. It was when we was linked with that Upamecano, right? And I'm pretty sure I read a report. I can't remember who it was from now, but a reporter said that Chelsea scouts looked at him and thought he was a bit sloppy on the ball. They was a bit concerned with his defending, his timing, his positioning, and things like that. Like that never comes out of Chelsea. That analytical side of
apparently it came out of Chelsea for Tchouaméni. Just there in that case, we had a bit of a howler.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously every club will do this behind the scenes. It's just like.
It just depends on what level of detail you go into.
Yeah, like you know what I mean. Like, have we got the elite people in charge? I mean, you look at our scouting network, our scouts which are available online. They're all from like League One, League Two clubs. We've got Tyrone Mings' dad as our scout. We've got Ross Turnbull, who's a former goalkeeper of ours. Like, I don't know any of these guys personally, but these aren't elite CVs you're seeing here for one of the biggest clubs in the world. Whereas, you know, like for example, Luis Campos, when he was like a sporting director, he's going to go to PSG now. I've read a report which was like he designed this own like computer network, and it was like you basically filtered certain things, and it would show a list of results, and it was like some amazing feature that was exclusive. He was like charging clubs to use it and stuff like that. It's like you know what I mean, the real detail, and I think that's why Finkelstein, although he's part of a non-executive board, he's worked with the head of data at Liverpool. It's probably why Boehly's talking to all these Liverpool people, because of Finkelstein as well. He's worked with Edwards and seen Edwards' work as well, Michael Edwards, who did really well there. So I don't know. In the future, I'm optimistic, but obviously short term, it looks like nothing's going to change at least.
We'll see. Just this comment here. He did, to be fair, but obviously, I mean, it might help us in analysing our own team and therefore figuring out what exactly we need. But then, obviously, Tuchel's analyst won't be the guy analysing players to sign type thing. But yeah, let's open this. Already sharing it. Just need to get to this one here. Let's get through this article and see what at least Matt Law had to say about it. Although Pice brought up something interesting. This article is going to say how we're going to be given £200 million. There's been differing, but also, in my opinion, why are you so sure about this report in terms of whether this £200 million includes sales or not, or includes the revenue we'll make from sales, or if it does, how many of the sales are included in this 200 million? Who knows? But what Pice brought up in our group chat before we went live here is that Matt Law said the same thing last year. And last year, we in the end spent 100 million basically on Lukaku and spent nothing else because Bettinelli was for free and Saul was a loan. And we funded that completely by sales. So we didn't get any 200 million last season to spend. We just used what we made. Obviously, it's not directly works like that. You can still be given a certain amount of money, spend that, and then the other money you bring back in is revenue that you put into something else. Sure, that's also how it works. But still, direct net spend of outgoings and comings in, it was actually a minor profit, even though we bought Lukaku for 97.5 million. But let's get through this quickly before I get Con and Clutch's thoughts on things involved again. What Todd Boehly's new era Chelsea will look like. Thomas Tuchel has already scrapped any holiday plans as club plots shift to follow the Manchester City and Liverpool model. Thomas Tuchel has not scheduled any holiday as he bids to get straight to work on Chelsea's new era under the Todd Boehly-led consortium. Boehly received confirmation on the final clearing of his takeover from government, the Premier League and Europe, with Chelsea now preparing an announcement on the club's change of ownership. There will be no time for celebrations, and head coach Tuchel, unlike a number of Premier League players and managers, has not marked the end of the season by taking a private jet to a luxury resort. Instead, Tuchel has remained at his home near Chelsea's common training ground to immerse himself in transfer meetings and how Boehly and his consortium want to plot their way through the start of the club's post-Roman Abramovich era. Tuchel could still take a break later in the summer if Chelsea's situation allows it, but he has nothing planned, and his main priority is to navigate his way through a squad overhaul and plot how the club can close the gap on Manchester City and Liverpool, which Boehly and his consortium are determined to do. Boehly, whose friends say he spends more hours on his jet than in any of his homes, is expected to spend significant time in London, as he already has done through the takeover process. He to hold talks with Tuchel and other key heads of department over what Chelsea's new era will look like. As revealed by Telegraph Sport, Boehly is ready to hand Thomas Tuchel a £200 million to spend, but just as important as the money will be a recognition of Chelsea's new owners to allow the German to rebuild the squad in his own identity, just as Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp have done. Now, if you just hear that, Clutch, let me go to you. It does sound quite good, right? If that's what's being reported by one of the more reliable outlets in terms of when it comes to Chelsea, it's good to hear that the owner has quite literally the plans to back the manager and actually stick by that. And if they want to copy the Man City and Liverpool model to some extent, more so Liverpool, obviously, in terms of what the money will be. But when you hear that that's what they're trying to emulate or even improve upon, ideally, of course, that's a good place to start, wouldn't you say, Clutch?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at our history and how we've gone around and done things, I think it shows how much that model that we used to have is why we're at where we're at now, with players that we can't get rid of, players that don't fit the manager, so on and so forth. So, I mean, I think Boehly is a guy who's looking at this and thinking, well, how do I make this not instant success, but long-term success, a long-term brand, as I think he would put it, where he wants to grow it not only within the winning side, but within the marketing side as well. I think this is the way to go about it. You want to build something that becomes a serial winner, because what does serial winners bring? They bring fans, they bring people, that's really why Real Madrid and United are where they are. They're serial winners.
Aren't we serial winners, though?
In a certain aspect, yes, but not as much as they have been dominant.
Not Wembley.
Yeah, that too. I mean, we are winners in our own right, but there are ways that United win that we haven't, like with like a long period of dominance or something like that, you know. I think it's one of those things where I think Boehly kind of sees that, and if he's willing to back the manager who has shown success within the squad that he has, I think it's very good for us in the future.
There you go. Let's get through this a bit more before I take it to Clutch. Where was I? It will encourage any Chelsea fans who are envious of what Klopp has been allowed to create at Anfield. The Liverpool chairman, Tom Werner, has revealed Boehly has already been in touch, picking my brain, of Chelsea's 26-man first-team squad that completed their season with a victory over Watford in front of Boehly last Sunday. Issues surround 14 of them, with 3 players, Antonio Rudiger, Andreas Christensen and Saul Niguez, certain to leave. Tuchel will want clarity over captain Azpilicueta's future soon, while players such as Marcos Alonso, Kepa Arrizabalaga, Timo Werner, Hakim Ziyech, Christian Pulisic, Ross Barkley and Kennedy will all be open to moves if Chelsea receive bids. Now, by the way, I don't think that should, for all of them, be seen as they want to leave, but as in also, you know, if a bid comes in and Chelsea would allow them to leave, they wouldn't force their stay, if that makes sense. Of course they could, because they have a contract. So if a club wants to sell a player and they just don't want to go, then they can stop it happening. Do you know what I mean? So I wouldn't necessarily say that for all of these players, other than maybe Alonso, who where it's quite public that he probably wants to leave, and Kepa probably to some extent as well. But I don't think it should be seen as a negative against any of these personally, but maybe other people have different opinions on that. Big decisions face Chelsea's new owners and Tuchel over Jorginho and N'Golo Kante, who both have a year remaining on the contract, where Romelu Lukaku and his representatives will seek talks over the striker's future. Perhaps it was because the door had accidentally been shut in his face on the way to a quiet corner by the bottom of a stairwell that leads up to the press seating at Stamford Bridge, but Tuchel was adamant in a small huddle with journalists last week that Chelsea face a headache this summer. With the benefit of more time without a door having hit him in the forehead, and now in the knowledge of change of ownership that will allow Chelsea to operate normally again is about to be announced, Tuchel may also view a period of transition as an opportunity. It has become apparent since Chelsea's last title win in 2017 that the club has remained competitive and successful in the cup competitions. The strategy needs to change in order to make serious grounds on and eventually catch City and Liverpool in the Premier League. The current squad was signed by 6 different managers. Such was the frequency with which the Stamford Bridge door revolved under Abramovich, and all of them had very different styles and philosophies. Contrast that with Liverpool and City this season, whose squads only contained 2 players not signed by their current coaches. Not only does Tuchel need his own players, but he needs his own culture, something with which a number of managers who have repeatedly questioned motivation levels, can't talk anymore, during bad periods have been unable to foster with a group of players who have known the Chelsea players have enjoyed far longer lifespans than the head coaches. The Boehly Group, which includes season ticket holders Daniel Finkelstein and Barbara Sharon, which is how I think I'm going to pronounce that, have been hugely impressed by the way Thomas Tuchel has dealt with the impact of the restrictions that were put on Chelsea as part of the sanctions placed on Abramovich. They also rate him as one of the very best head coaches in the world and want to allow the German to redirect all of his energy and focus into football and the squad rather than having to deal with issues surrounding global or club politics. There has been criticism from supporters that Tuchel had to face all of the questions on the subject of Abramovich and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, while Chairman Bruce Buck remained silent, and fans can expect more dialogue from the board under the Boehly regime. Now, when you hear that, Clutch, that's a positive, isn't it? Like, even though when I said that, I can't remember on which stream I said it. I've been doing a lot recently, but I said on some stream that while it's certainly been difficult for Tuchel, I think the reason why he has so much backing of the large majority of the fans and why he has such a connection with the fans is actually because he had to go through that. Obviously, we had a certain connection and a love for him already anyway, because he won us our second ever Champions League last season out of nothing, out of being 10th in the Premier League when he took over. But still, I think the fact that he had to go through this and the way he handled it, if anything, made it even a more tight-knit bond between him and the fans. Number one, Con, would you agree with that? And number two, it's still good to hear, isn't it, that those things are not going to be issues that we hopefully have to worry about in the future.
Yeah, bro. Like, do you know, with the sinking ship, right? The first people to flee off it, or the thing to flee off it, are rats, right? He was like our captain during that time, bro. If we was going down, he was coming down with us, and that's why we absolutely love the guy, you know. And yeah, I think it's worked in his favour as well, even with like the Boehly and stuff like that, because he's come this sort of some icon at Chelsea now, you know, and like you have to give him what he wants. You have to allow him to be happy at Chelsea because we love him as fans. Did you see the video, Lawrence, of him seeing his banner?
Yeah, it was so nice, man.
Oh, bro, it brought a tear to my eye. I absolutely loved it, man. And yeah, so what was the other question you asked?
Whether you agree that him having to deal with all of this stuff over the last few months, the sanctions and everything that went on, that he was the spokesperson of Chelsea. Sorry, my lungs. I need to get better. That has actually helped him create an even tighter bond with the fans, because we all appreciate how he handled that, because it was difficult to handle for any manager, and he didn't get any help from the higher ups like Bruce Buck, and he still handled it so well. I think that is a reason why we love him even more now. Do you know what I mean?
No, yeah, 200%, bro. Because like, it's not his job to answer all these questions. He just coaches the team and tried to get results on the pitch. But he was doing so much more than that. And there was like links of him going to United. There was pundits like Rio Ferdinand saying, "Oh, I think United should look at Tuchel and all that." There was a lot of noise going on around Chelsea about players, how are we going to get to like games? And it was like, I would hire like a minibus and I'd drive us there. You know, like that's, I just love the man for that, man. It's just
exactly.
Tuchel. He's perfect in every sense in my eyes, man. I love him. I know he's not. He does make mistakes. He's human, but bro, this guy is like. If there's untouchable at Chelsea right now, he's one of the select few, man. Him and Emma Hayes as well. Big ups to both of them, man.
Emma Hayes, all the same, yeah, of course. Let's just finish this article quickly before we kind of move on to broaden this conversation a little bit. Abramovich and his close-knit team created a cutthroat, win-at-all-costs mentality at Chelsea, which carried advantages and disadvantages and is likely to evolve over time in, excuse me, in the Boehly era, which he makes... while he makes success front and center of his strategy, those who know Boehly's work in business and as a part owner of the LA Dodgers baseball team expect Stamford Bridge to become a more nurturing environment under the new consortium, both for players and staff. Mason Mount and Reece James could be early beneficiaries of a desire to reward high performance, with talks over new contracts for both players likely to take place. Chelsea chewed up and spat out their fair share of big-name players and managers during the 19 highly successful years under Abramovich. That approach may no longer be sustainable, and Klopp's mentality monsters at Liverpool are programmed differently to the likes of Petr Cech, John Terry, Frank Lampard, Ashley Cole, and TJ Drogba, who could live with and thrive under the constant threat of change. Boehly is very much the face of Chelsea's new era, but on the pitch, Tuchel has the chance to build the start in... All right. To build the start of it in his image. Didn't read it properly before I went away from it. Now, when we hear that, number 2, guys, nearly 400 people watching. Again, subscribe, please, and smash that like button for me. Let me take it to you again, Pice. Now, to take what basically this article finished it off with in terms of on the pitch, a lot of decisions will come through and from Thomas Tuchel. I guess that takes us into a bit of what's about to come. Now, it said there £200 million will be invested. Again, we don't... Goal.com, as I can tell, did report that that's going to be £200 million once you include the revenue from certain expected player sales. Number 1, how true is that? We don't know. Number 2, which of the player sales are expected ones? Like, are we then just talking Alonso, Kepa, and maybe Aspie? Or are we also talking about maybe a Brojo or a Timo Werner or Hakim Ziyech, maybe a Jorginho, which I doubt, but we'll see. Maybe an Emerson. I mean, who knows? Who knows? But do you like the idea? I mean, I'm sure you do, but just to clarify to everybody watching, do you like the idea that he's going to be given that power and he's going to be, the main decision maker in terms of who comes in and who doesn't? Obviously, well, maybe it's not main decision maker. Maybe it's just he makes sure he clarifies what he wants and then he's given that. I'm sure rather than saying, I want this specific player, it's going to be more, I want a player that does this, and then we need to figure out which players do this, and then we bring them in. Obviously, Jules Kounde will basically... I mean, the fact that he's in London already, I feel like it's going to be announced not long, I think, but maybe I'm wrong, too long after the whole new owner thing will be announced, but we'll see, I guess, about that one. But there is more to come. Now, start with that, Pies, and then we'll take it into the transfer targets, which obviously Tuchel has been receiving a little bit of criticism for over the timeline so far today. But so far, what do you expect to come in the summer? Like, I saw a few of your tweets where it was like you almost expect more than that.
I mean, it's so hard because, like you said, first off, the reports, you expect positive reports, right? Of any new ownership. I think you'd be a bit disappointed if Matt Law released an article and said we're spending 50 to 100 million. He has a source. His source literally got revealed. It was Jonathan Goldstein. He accidentally posted a WhatsApp message with him. So, of course, fans are gonna, lap up the positivity. But
we don't know if that's just one of his sources or his only source.
Yeah, I know, but in terms of like, if you was to be told this 200 million, obviously it's going to probably come from him because he's the one who knows the finances, what the bid is going to actually spend. So, I mean, at the end of the day, like as you said, it's hard because who are the expected sales? Are we talking about Lukaku and Ziyech and Pulisic, or are we talking about Emerson and Alonso? It's very, very different. It gives a whole new outlay because if it's Emerson and Alonso, you're talking probably what? 180 million before you sell those two to then reach 200 million, maybe. That's very, very good. But if you're talking Lukaku, Ziyech, Pulisic, you're probably.
I still don't see Lukaku going there. I feel like it's also not been. He's also not one of the heavily reported names to be.
I don't see how he stays. I don't see how he stays. Tuchel doesn't trust him. He doesn't fit into our style of play. It's an absolute non-debate. I like Lukaku, but I don't see how he stays. He'll go on loan or something. Something will have to be worked out. it's going to come out in the next few weeks.
Did you expect zero change in our play style, that we couldn't adapt to him whatsoever?
I don't.
And
Tuchel,
him also
Tuchel's
continue to adapt to us by doing
well,
preseason.
no, because I don't think Lukaku wants to do that, and Tuchel doesn't want to adapt to his style of play. So it's a it's a complete confusion. Every time Lukaku has tried, well, most of the time it's not worked. So I don't see how that works out personally. It's a bit of a roadblock for me, that whole situation. Yeah, what else was you asking? I mean, Nizar's article, yeah, he said it's again after player sales. Well, what player sales? You know what I mean? Like, it's not enough clarity. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, the targets, obviously, the disappointing thing for me is that 2 defenders left. I think if 1 defender left, we'd have such a better summer, because we'd be able to go onto the midfield and attack almost instantaneously after securing Kounde. But now we're going to have to sign that second defender. And, if we do hit, 40, 50 million on the other defender, who knows what we're going to have to spend going forward, because there's a lot of areas in this squad that needs to be worked on. And as you might live as well, I mean, one of the main concerns I have is that I know one of the reported top targets for Tuchel is Gvardiol. I said this on Twitter last night. You cannot expect to go into the season and challenge for a title or a Champions League and potentially cups with a defence that's lost Rudiger and Azpilicueta as dressing room and on-field leaders. Now, I know people have a debate. Azpilicueta is not an on-field leader. Whatever, he's a dressing room leader. That's a fact. He's going to have an influence. You can't have Gvardiol, who's 20, Chalobah's 22, Kounde, who's 23, who's just joined the league, is fresh. Cole as well, who's 19. The only senior player in that defence would be Thiago Silva, which is why I keep championing someone like Koulibaly, who's a leader and who's had massive experience in Europe. I know not in the Premier League, but if we're going for someone to replace Rudiger,
also not a lot in the Champions League, to be fair.
It's still had quite a bit though.
It is. But Napoli just haven't been particularly successful anywhere in Europe.
In my opinion, and I'll say this next season as well, we will massively struggle if we buy 2 young centre backs. We won't hit the expectations that Chelsea fans want, and it's going to be very, very hard for some Chelsea fans to adapt to the expectations. It's all good, right? It's brilliant building a squad for the future. But what is the future? Is that 2-3 years? I'm sure both of them will be brilliant then. But
it's half of our problem now that our forwards is Havertz and Pulisic and Hudson-Odoi and Mason Mount.
Like, you still need to have some experience in the squad. Like, I just think this, it's really painful that we're losing Rudiger. Really, it's a massive loss, honestly, because he's like, I don't care what you think about him before Tuchel. Right now, the last year and a half, like, he literally has embodied everything that Chelsea's been about.
He's
like,
one of the best 5 centre backs in the world.
You can't replace him. People telling me, "Oh, Gvardiol's played a lot for a 20-year-old." Mate, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's not. That's not the point. The point is, you have to replace Rudiger with someone who's like for like and who's actually like has that similar influence on the pitch. Otherwise, you're going to struggle. I'm telling you right now, we'll struggle. So that's my whole debate on the whole or opinion on the whole centre back thing. Anyway, but yeah, who knows what's going to come in.
I mean, I could not agree more, mate. I mean, the whole Gvardiol thing, I won't pretend to be an expert on it. Just the plan is still to have a stream with Euro expert on the weekend where he might give us a bit more information and we might be aware of Gvardiol because, he will know more about these types of players than I will. But what I don't understand about it, even if he's good, even if he's theoretically a bit more, I don't know whether he is. I would say I doubt it, but who knows? Even if he was theoretically a tiny bit more talented than Levi Cole will, right? The whole idea of the academy is either to feed players into the club, into the first team, or make revenue. Those 2 things is what the academy is there for, because it's quite literally impossible to put every single player that comes out of the academy into the first team. So it has to be both. But in my head, considering Gvardiol is 20 years old and Levi Cole is 19 years old, and yeah, he's played 2 seasons in the Bundesliga. Sure. Number one, we know what that means. Sometimes look at Timo Werner. And also, the championship is not just some league. And also, he's in a playoff final. So he's like close to getting promoted. Like alone at Huddersfield, with the season he's had, especially with how good he's been, it's not too different from Billy Gilmore's loan in the championship at Norwich in the Premier League. It's not too different. Sure, the opposition on average is a little bit different. But what matters is that he gets game time, that he learns leadership. If anything, I sometimes think it's better to be in a for promotion fighting team in the championship than it is for than it is to be at an against relegation fighting team in the Premier League. Because what you need at Chelsea is you need to learn that the expectation is to win every game. And you learn that much better at a team that's trying to get promoted than a team that's trying not to get relegated. And also, exactly like Pai said, we need experience. Like, Kounde is young in himself. I mean, he's younger than Christensen, who we're losing, right? And like, he's had his time at Sevilla, obviously, but it's not like filled with experience. Even Pau Torres, obviously a little bit better there. He's played plenty of games for the Spanish national team, has won a European trophy with Villarreal, has made it to a Champions League semi-final with Villarreal, even if he didn't perform particularly well in either of those legs against Liverpool. There's at least a little something there. But then you take it to Koulibaly, and it certainly makes more sense. I mean, he's 31. We know of Thiago Silva, not everyone declines that quickly. And even if you say he's done by 33, that still gives us 2 years where we can see what happens to Levi Cole and can he potentially be ready to be a starter then. And then by then we need to find a direct replacement for Thiago Silva anyway and can bring the experience back into the side that way, right? We just need to find a way, and like Pai said, we need to make sure we don't lose too much experience. I mean, Clutch, would you go along with that, or would you rather prioritize the maximum potential of a player and ignore experience on the other side? You know, because Pau Torres, Guardiola probably have a higher ceiling from now on than Kalidou Koulibaly potentially. But Kalidou Koulibaly is more expected to perform straight away, number one, and bring certain aspect to which the other guys, because of their age, simply cannot.
Yeah, no, I agree with you guys. I said it in the chat earlier when people were talking about this. I said, we're going to sit here and we're going to bring all these young guys in, or we want to bring all these young guys in. They're not going to perform, and then we're just going to call them bad when they're obviously not bad. They're just inexperienced. I mean, we do it with our attack. It's like you just said, our attack is young. Yes, someone might not be good. Yes, that might be things, but the potential was there. But the experience was not. So we sit here and we talk about, well, we want to do that same thing with the defense just because they have potential and they're doing well where they're at. That's just not how that works. You need experience. Experience is the most important thing out on the pitch because that's what you rely on at the end of the day. Thiago Silva has a vast amount of experience. It's not his athleticism that's keeping him afloat. It's his brain. It's his experience. He's one of the smartest defenders we've ever seen. And that is why he's still able to play at 37 years old. It's because he has that experience. He knows where he needs to be in what situation. That's what you need. And like I said, losing Rudiger is one of the worst things that could have happened to us because that's what he brought. He brought experience. He brought that leadership. He brought that desire. It's hard to replace that. And to go out there and say, we need to go get Guardiola and then go get Kounde and we'll be set. That's not how that works. Even Levi Cole himself is not going to be the starter next year, or at least he shouldn't be. We need experience, and I agree with both you and Pius.
I'm muted, ignore me. Con, similar question to you, really. Do you think experience is important to bring in now that we're losing a player like Rudiger? And would Koulibaly fill those requirements for you, or would you try to look elsewhere, even if we've not quite directly been linked to them?
For me, bro, yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I think experience is important. When you lose someone like Rudiger, you need to fulfill that role like properly, not just by the quality, but what he brings to the table, the aggression, that leadership, that warrior mentality. And as good as Gabriel is, I can't pronounce his name properly, or someone like a young talented player might be, you don't want a full back line, especially your back line. That's what's meant to be solid. That's like your core, So you don't want just so much inexperience in the back line. Like, even if it's someone like Conor Cody, I know that's not a name that shouts out to everybody like, oh, what a player. But it's like just a stopgap. We've got so much business to do this summer. We don't have to get like a big name. We can get a stopgap. I'm not sure about
Conor Cody, but in general, I agree.
But you know what I mean? Like, there's no problem with getting a stopgap just for a season, See how Cole does. Get someone who can play like off the bat, who's got a bit of experience. Doesn't have to be the best centre back in the world, and then you can sort of get Cole into the team gradually. You're not putting that pressure on him. And then if he's as good as people make out, and he's as good as Chelsea think he is, then we wouldn't have to sign like 40 million, 50 million for another left centre back. We have Cole, but Tuchel seems to like. How do you pronounce his name? Is it Gabriel?
Gvardiol.
Gvardiol, yeah. Tuchel seems to like him. So if it's backing the manager, I'll back it. Even if I feel like we need a bit of experience, I'll back it. But yeah, for me, I don't know why Chelsea don't do more stopgap signings, you know. It's not the worst thing. We have so much business to do this summer. Not every position we could fill with a world-class player or a top player, you know. We haven't got the money. It's as simple as that.
There you go. I mean, I do hear that as well. Obviously, that's one advantage that comes with potentially going for Koulibaly, that he only has 1 year left on his contract, doesn't he, Pies?
Who?
Koulibaly.
Yeah, 1 year left. Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
what's
Which
funny
would make him
is
more reasonably priced
I was
because we know how dealing with Napoli works, right?
I was just gonna say, the manager of Napoli said he's gonna strap himself to the gates of the entrance of the club if they sell him. So, I mean, that's something.
Well, that makes things a bit more difficult. But we also know that ADL, the guy in charge, De Laurentiis at Napoli. Now, number one, he doesn't like dealing with us much, which is a problem. But after the whole Sarri Jorginho saga, but we also know he doesn't give two shits about his managers very often. So, you know, even if his manager has a bit of something to complain about, ADL is certainly known to not really care much. So that's one way of looking at it. Now, Pies, the other thing I was going to start to touch on is a little bit of criticism that Tuchel has actually been receiving today in terms of certain transfer targets he apparently is looking at. And who does that include? Obviously, Nkunku. It includes Dembele. It includes, Raheem Sterling. It includes Jonathan David. And who else does it include? Or is it those four?
Nunes.
Nunes, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's those.
It is those. And number one, what the most confusing part about that is, are we not even sure whether we want a wing or a striker? Because how is Jonathan David made that list? Because either we want a striker or we want a winger. Like, you've got to make your mind up. You can't just say, one of these four, because they're completely different players. So I don't understand that at all. Is that got to be a situation like, if we sign Jonathan David, Havertz turns into an inside forward permanently rather than a number 9? Do you know what I mean? Well, in Nkunku, like Jester says here, most likely isn't going anywhere. The only advantage, apparently Chelsea might try to jump in and stop him from signing a new contract at Leipzig, but actually, maybe we should let him sign a new contract, depending on when he gets that buyback clause or that buyout clause placed into the contract. If it only becomes active next year or 2 years from now, not good. If it's active immediately, maybe good. But obviously that's something for Nkunku and his agent to deal with. But Nkunku is a weird one anyway. Obviously, what season? Especially in a season where Leipzig weren't even that good. Like, Leipzig weren't nowhere near on the same level as they were on when Timo Werner was there, for example. And still his numbers, how many goals did he score? Like 35 odd, if not more, with another like 20, nearly 25 odd assists added to that. That's insane numbers, especially in a league where, mind you, they have 4 less league games than the Premier League because they only consist of 18 teams, the Bundesliga. They only have 1 cup competition. Sure, Leipzig made the final and won that on penalties, but still, it's only 1 cup competition, so that's less games. And I don't know which European competition they were in, but they certainly didn't make it that far, whichever one it was. So to have his numbers in quotation marks, little number of games, mental. But Thomas Tuchel had him at PSG, played him at wingback. If I'm honest, I didn't even know Thomas Tuchel used wingbacks at PSG, if I'm being completely honest. But I heard that story and agreed to a sale. Didn't even play anywhere near his best position and then agreed to a sale. So now you're interested in him? That's a bit weird. Jonathan David is a player that has by far his biggest strength in counter-attacking football, which we don't play. Which is partly why Lukaku is so not working for the most part. So why would we look at another striker that has similar attributes? Again, just confusing. Now, you can all comment on that if you want, but I want to take it to a bit of a CL what? Clutch
Leipzig were in the Champions League.
Sorry?
Leipzig were in the Champions League and went out.
Until the round of 16. Did they not lose in the group stages and then lose in the...
That's
because
what
I
they
think
did. They lost in the group stage.
Rangers beat them in the Europa League. I know that.
Yeah, they were in the group stage and went out.
Yeah, and then Rangers beat them in Europa League. I can't remember if it was round of 16 or quarterfinals though. But anyway, I want to have a bit of a discussion about Raheem Sterling, because Raheem Sterling, the fact that Chelsea are interested in, because out of those ones, in my opinion, seems the mix of most realistic and best. Now, Dembele would be nice, especially if he stays fit. What a player. Young, incredibly talented. I mean, probably the most two-footed player in world football these days. But if the wage demands that are reported by Sky Germany are even remotely true, they're talking about 43 million euros a year, might be before tax, but still, that's 827,000 euros a week. Like, that's 2.5 times of what Lukaku makes at Chelsea. Like, can't be doing that. I hope I haven't turned into a robot again. So I'll just keep talking and hope it works. But who was talking about? Yeah, Raheem Sterling. Now, for me, my perspective. Now, you know what? I'll ask Con first. Con, what do you think about Raheem Sterling?
I think in this kind of system, I think it could work, to be fair. I think people just notice these big chances missed and they're like, oh, he can't finish. But I reckon if you have Sterling hugging that touchline, like you saw Hudson-Odoi do this point in this season, and you have like James inverted, I think that's when we played our best football this season, when we played with inverted wing backs at the start. I think he could do damage, you know. I think he could really do something in this Chelsea team, you know. Have James inverted, have him out wide, because he can take on the man as well. He has a bit of 1v1 threat. He brings a lot to the table. He's not just getting them goals and them tap-ins for City. There's a lot to Sterling's game that people don't really tend to realise. Preferably, I'd prefer Dembele, 100%. I don't know if that's going to happen, though. And for the right price, I wouldn't mind Sterling. But ideally, I would want someone who's a bit more creative in an ideal world. But if it was Sterling, we got to freshen up the attack, I wouldn't be angry at it.
You're muted, bro.
Why do I keep forgetting to unmute myself? That's so annoying. I do apologize. I was asking you, Clutch, what you thought of Raheem Sterling. My apologies.
Pretty similar to Khan, right? I mean, I don't think we're going to get Dembele. I think that is a very long shot at this point. Maybe. It's maybe, but everything I keep hearing is that he's either going to be at Barcelona or he'll be at PSG. So maybe Tuchel can convince him, but I doubt it. Like you said, probably the most realistic and best of the options that we have. Yes, Sterling does miss a lot of opportunities. I mean, our forwards do too, right? So he'd fit in perfectly, but maybe it might work. I do think he's a better wide player than he would be as an inverted forward. So I think that's where I don't necessarily agree with Khan. We just don't play with those wide forwards. So, I mean, kind of similar to I find him at a very similar level, but more experienced than like a Pulisic or a Cho, and better, to be honest. But maybe. It's a maybe. I mean, what was it, like 3 seasons ago he was towards the top of the scoring list?
I swear Sterling on average also has loads of assists. Probably not this season, but I swear usually he did.
I thought he always had loads of goals. I thought he always had within the 15,
I thought he just
20
had both, if I'm honest, but I agree with you.
I don't remember assists, but I know goals. But it could work. I mean, theoretically, it could work. We'll see. I would be okay with it. Obviously, I said Neymar in the chat, even though I don't think that would work. But yeah, it'd probably be Sterling as the most realistic option.
There you go. Cranky Pants, I've put the response to your question in the chat, so you can copy it from there. But yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with a mix of what both of you have said then, Con and Clutch. Now, I do see what Clutch, I said this already, I think our system limits any winger to 1,000,000% thrive. I think that's just a problem this system comes with. I'm not saying it's necessarily the worst system, full stop, but that position, I think, is limited a little bit, no matter who you put there. And I see what people are saying in terms of that he misses a lot of chances. Fair enough. Now, number one, you can't always go like for like when you have that many chances and also the types of chances Man City have compared to what we do, right? Number one. But also, that would be a fair criticism if we had players that didn't have that issue. And number two, there were players available which didn't have that issue. And that's where it becomes more tricky. Yeah, it's easy to say, I don't want that. But when you don't have better options, either at your club or available to buy elsewhere, then you still need to look at your best options. Now, number one, We constantly complain that our players are too young to rely upon. Okay, Sterling is not as young. What's he, 27, 28? So better in that sense. Number two, we always complain about signing players from abroad, and then we realize they need too much time to adapt when they need to adapt to the Premier League, especially when it comes to forward players. Obviously, defensive players, it's going to be differently, but for forward players, we've always said that. Whether it's Werner, whether it's Havertz, everyone's always used that excuse when it wasn't working for them. Pulisic all the same. He is Premier League proven, not just a little bit. He's Premier League proven at two different clubs at a very high level. He's proven he was England's best player at the Euros last time. He was basically carrying England's attack because Harry Kane decided to be Spurs for England. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, towards the end, Harry Kane figured himself out a little bit. But England wouldn't have even got far enough for Kane to do that without Sterling. Sterling was literally carrying the attack of England, really. I mean, you guys are the England fans, not me, but you probably know better. But that was certainly my perspective on it. And yeah, Lou, it's fair to say proven like Lukaku. But just like the likelihood of someone working that has Premier League experience is still bigger than someone that doesn't. But there's obviously never a guarantee for anything. And also what I will say is Pulisic has decent dribbling, especially before he lost a little bit that edge of pace. But Raheem Sterling is a very different realm of dribbling ability. Like there is the very highest upper echelon, but that includes like Neymar and Hazard, Messi, Mbappe, kind of those four. And I think maybe a Mane, maybe a Salah, I don't know. And then on the next step below, you have like the Sterlings, in my opinion, the Manes, the Salahs, maybe a Gnabry, those types of players. That's where they come in. Like, Vinicius Junior might be, maybe I should put him in the highest upper echelon of dribbling ability. But that's when those players come in, and ours are miles off, right? That pace and that dribbling, that low center of gravity, we don't have that. Even the amount of penalties we'd win on irregular would skyrocket. And I mean, we had parts this season where we won loads, and then we had other parts this season where we had none. I feel like that's another part. Like we struggled to break low blocks down. Winning penalties is can be a big aspect in turning games around. Man said Mbappe a dribbler. What have I heard? Now, while I see what you mean, watch a lot of his goals. Just watch his goal against Real Madrid. The fact that he did a step over to send Courtois into the far corner and then take around him. Fair enough, I see what you're saying. It's more just direct pace rather than intricate dribbling like Hazard and Messi do. But there's still dribbling ability where you don't just take the ball away from him at the end of the day. I'll read out the super chat first before I take my monologue to Pice, essentially. USA CFC, appreciate the donation a lot, saying people want 1v1 players, but in this system, attackers are rarely in positions where it's a 1v1 situation. So we have 3 centre-backs and a DM, while City and Liverpool have 2 centre-backs and a DM. And we can't create overloads. Now, we can create overloads, just we don't. There's an interesting stat, which Monster tweeted a couple of days ago. It was like, Chelsea are 15th in number of switches of play in the Premier League, while Manchester City are first. It's no surprise at all that we struggle breaking down low blocks, because switching the play is quite literally the best way of achieving that. Because if you always just pass around in a triangle or in a quadrant, or just 4 or 5 players in one side of the pitch, and then you take way too long to get to the other side of the pitch, by that point the whole defense is shifted over. If you switch it quickly, and not just you switch it at the right time, but you need to switch it with pace on that switch ball, the amount of space you create is huge, absolutely huge. But in general, I actually agree with USA CFC's comment here, very much so, that our system doesn't really allow that, which is partly why I want to change the system. But I think there's certain players which are so good at exactly that they would create it for themselves anyway. But players that are not quite as good at it, they struggle more to create it for themselves, and you need to create it for them, if that makes sense. So like Hazard, put him in this position, in this formation, he would find ways to dribble. Chelsea Hazard, I'm talking, not Real Madrid Hazard. Chelsea Hazard. He would find ways to dribble and beat players 1-on-1, 1v2. He would find ways. Our players don't, but their players do. Or some players do. And I think that. But to some extent, I also agree that we just need just a pointless defender less, but at the same time, it's like either pointless defender less or just be more willing to push the midfielders higher. Both, they kind of fix each other's problem, if that makes sense. But bloody hell. Bites, how do you see it? Number one, what's your reaction to the super chat, and also to basically what I was talking about before about Raheem Sterling?
Can you bring the super chat back up again? I kind of read a little bit of it.
Go on.
Yeah, I mean, I do get this, but at the same time, it's like people try and act like these players can't dribble, and they don't want to dribble. I mean, they clearly do, and they clearly can dribble. I think a lot of our players, especially in the later half
That's
of
what
this
he's saying,
season,
though. He's saying that our system doesn't allow our attackers to
yeah,
dribble, even if they would want to.
I don't agree though. I really don't agree. I still feel like you can show more authority. I feel like when Hudson-Odoi was playing, he was constantly driving at defenders on the left-hand side. I feel like our wingers, or some of our wingers, play it just too safe, or are scared of getting injured. So, yeah, there is certain occasions where the wingers will get, or inside forwards will get crowded, and there isn't space to dribble. But at the same time, if you're telling me that there is not a serious lack of invention and idea from these attackers, you are literally lying to me. They can do much more. And if you saw it, then you'd be like, oh my god, you know what I mean? Like even Summon, bro. Like it's just there's been some. It's more towards the latter half of the season where I just feel like these players were on the beach for months. To be honest, bro. Like honestly, they our attackers, bro. They don't attack any players. It was constantly sideways football, crosses in the box. It got repetitive and boring.
But do you think it's a coincidence that our players have that problem, and it's constant? Like it's constantly that our players have the problem. We said that about Pedro. We said that about Willian. We said that about everyone that except Hazard for years.
Yeah, but
Essentially,
Willian wasn't
do you think it's a
like Willian and
coincidence
Pedro
that it's
weren't
only the
direct wingers
players
though.
we signed that have that problem, or do you think
I
we
think
need to help them more to fix that problem?
I've always said I think moving to a four at the back, having like proper like having more width would help, but at the same time, like you just mentioned Willian and Pedro there, they weren't direct dribblers anyway. Willian was someone who wanted the ball to the feet and would like do a little shimmy and run down the line, but he wasn't some like direct, pacey,
He was when you
attacking
put him on the
outlet.
left, not when you put him on the right.
It was just like yeah. To be fair, he was more direct on the left, but like Pedro was kind of like he was a bit more of a dribbler, but he was kind of like smart. He was more movement
With us,
based.
I agree, but think back to him at Barcelona.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think
That's what I mean, though.
someone
Like
like a
for us, they
Sterling,
weren't.
like if you're telling me someone like a Sterling, who is literally all he does is get the ball and runs at people. If you're telling me that he comes into this team and suddenly starts passing it sideways and backwards and don't dribble, I'm just like I don't think that's going to happen. And if it does happen, then maybe you can look at Tuchel, you can look at the system, but I just don't think that our current wingers have or want to have the authority to do that. Maybe it is part of the system as well, because I think, like I saw Grealish saying the other day, like part of Pep's system is Grealish was like, I want to drive at players, I want to create chances and stuff like that. I want to be myself, but Pep has a go at me if I lose the ball. Tuchel has a go at people if they lose the ball. So maybe some of these wingers are scared of dribbling, losing the ball, and being shouted at. But at the same time, like
I don't think it's
like
being shouted at. I think it's
it's
being
just like,
brought
but
forward.
if that's
What they're
true,
saying.
then how are you going to win games anyway? You're not going to win. Like how are we ever going to move forward in the table if our wingers aren't direct and we just play keep ball all game? Like it's not. You know what I mean? Like there's got to be a balance or a truth to it. I don't think people really know what's going on. All we know is what we see, and what we see is that these wingers do not dribble. Like very rarely do they dribble.
I
It's
agree.
a
I
fact.
agree. And signing someone like Sterling would also be a good.
It's a
I
good
don't know.
test. It's a test to see
Yeah.
if
That's
if,
the word.
if it's
Yeah, good
true. You
word.
know what I
Good word.
mean? Like
It's a test. That, yeah.
if he comes in and doesn't dribble, it's like, well, what's going on here? Because
Yeah.
it's like Dembele. Watch Dembele. All he does is pick up the ball, and because he's so fucking quick, he's gone. You know what I mean? He takes people on for fun. He got like 11 dribbles or 14 dribbles or something stupid the other day. 14 take-ons I read. Like that's all he does, bro. So if these types of wingers who are literally all they do, their play style is based on taking people on, being fast, being aggressive, being dangerous. If they come in and they don't dribble and create chances, then there's the problem. I just don't think these current wingers are like that. I don't think that's their characteristics.
I agree. But in the end, what thoughts on Sterling then? From what you've said so far, makes
Yeah,
it sound like you would take him.
I'd like him. I mean, he'd be a great player, I think, for us. I've always said I think he's slightly greedy, but you know, I mean, he's scored pretty much 10 goals every season for City. I know they create more chances, but he would get goals for us, I think, especially with some of his movement late in the box as well. How many times do we moan about people not arriving in the box at the right time and shit like that? Like, he's a very smart
That's his
player.
bread and butter. Like just being there on the line, tapping it in.
Yeah. I think that's what Pulisic started to develop under Lampard, right? You remember he was doing these all back post runs and that sort of disappeared. But yeah, I don't know.
It's a weird one. I do want to quickly touch on, or respond almost to the people that keep calling him just a Werner. I think that's one of the laziest player comparisons I've ever heard. Obviously, it's clearly part of the stats amount, the amount of chances that he misses or doesn't take, but that doesn't make you Werner. For him to be Werner, he would have to have an awful touch, be really bad at dribbling, really bad at passing, and the only thing he'd actually be good at is running. Now, and Raheem Sterling is even better than Sterling at running. The only thing Werner might be better at is constantly running. But Sterling is much better at not constantly being offside, which is that timing of runs is so important. Of course, that also has to do with teammates in terms of that you need to have timing with your teammates of when to run and when the ball comes. And then when you receive the ball, number one, be capable of controlling it, and number two, actually be able to dribble with it, you cannot say it's Werner. Like, you literally cannot say that. Sure, the comparison in terms of in front of goal might be fair, but there's a big difference here. Timo Werner was supposed to come in and score goals. If we get Raheem Sterling, in my opinion, we wouldn't bring him in with the first and foremost and sole purpose of scoring goals. Like, that wouldn't be just his job. Of course, he would be an attacker and we would want goals from him. But part of what I would want from him is having someone capable of dribbling, of breaking a low block down with a moment of brilliance, which at the moment no one gives us. And system can do so much, but Liverpool and City in some games against extreme low blocks, they need their players to come up with moments of brilliance. That's just how it goes. I mean, that's how we won the Champions League final. If it wasn't possible to stop a better team by defending deep and defending well, we would have never won the Champions League in 2012. But it is possible unless, unless the opposition has multiple or one moment of brilliance, which is how they break you down. And I think that's what Sterling would offer, which we currently don't have. Clutch, please forgive me. I can't remember. Did I already ask you about Sterling? Did I?
Yes.
We did. Now, another one I quickly want to bring up, just because I don't think I think you were obviously on the stream, Clutch, but I think Pies and Con were not. So I'll start with that. It's not a real rumor that we, for the time being, need to worry about all too much, but the reports are that PSG would not force Neymar or would entertain the idea of selling Neymar if a decent offer comes in. What that offer requires to be, who knows? I swear last week I read something about 70 million. Not sure whether that was pounds or euros though. And then there's obviously a lot of money, but obviously now that Tchouaméni's gone to Real Madrid, who knows whether we'll sign Rice. And if we don't sign Rice but another midfielder, then obviously there will be money left also to spend on an attacker, because then whoever we sign midfield will be much cheaper, or we won't, right? And I've been in a position, I've been very adamant always, that I wouldn't want Neymar at Chelsea. Now, number one, it was much more so many years ago, and all our forwards are required to score, of course, but, there's a difference between someone coming in like Werner as coming in with a ridiculous goal-scoring record in his last season at Leipzig, and we signed him to score goals, compared to signing someone that's not with their first and sole focus being scoring. But anyway, I've always been against Neymar because, number one, I thought he would be an extremely bad influence in the dressing room. And obviously, it's only a relevant thought if the wages wouldn't be stupendously high, because that would fuck too many things anyway. And also, I don't like his antics on the pitch. I don't like how he rolls around like a little bitch, essentially. I don't like how he still is a dirty twat, how he kicks and scratches and whatever he does with people, but still is that divey twat. I really don't like that. But then when it becomes a rumor and I think about it, I'm like, my God, imagine a player like Neymar. Do you know what I mean? Like Neymar. Like, obviously, with Hazard, we had that, but we didn't get Hazard when he was that stature. We got Hazard and made him that stature, and then he left. Obviously, Neymar certainly past his prime, and you would need to hope that coming to a more difficult challenge in the Premier League, he would bring more motivation out of him if it were to happen ever. because with his at least reported level of training intensity and want for training and those kind of things, that wouldn't work out. Now, what I held against him many years ago is that I always said, oh, these Premier League defenders would just break his legs. Now, I think the Premier League has moved on a little bit. Number one, it's not quite so much that referees let so much more go in the Premier League than they do in other leagues. I think that's changed. Number two, I think the Liga is, if anything, a very physical league anyway. And also, look at other players that succeed in this league. I don't know, Bernardo Silva, Luis Diaz. These people don't get hacked down and get their legs broken. Like, Neymar will be fine, I reckon, from that point of view. But I still, in my head, still slightly is winning the fear of what he would cause in the dressing room. But his ability is tickling me a bit, shall I say. Con, what's your perspective on that?
The Neymar one, this is an interesting topic, isn't it? I've seen many opinions about it, but I just think, bro, imagine going to like the Chelsea megastore, right, and then picking up a Neymar top with Chelsea, like a Chelsea top with Neymar on the back. That's mad. You know, that's things you dream about. And he spoke about a player who could give you a bit of a moment of magic, you know, to win you a game. You know, it's Neymar. You know, he's one of the most naturally talented footballers on this planet. Slight issue for me would be availability. He gets injured quite a bit,
especially the Premier League.
We won't mention why, but I think we all know. But I don't know, bro. It's like if it was a sensible price and we got areas that we needed to get, like I don't know how you could say no. You know, like if it don't work out, it don't work out. But it's a great opportunity. You know, you don't get many chances of signing someone of Neymar's stature. You know? It just doesn't come around. Bro, just walking around. How mad is that, bro? Wearing a Chelsea top with a Neymar on the back. How mad would that be? Like it doesn't seem real.
The idea would be crazy.
Just the creativity he'd bring from his dribbling, bro. Just that alone, like 2 or 3 men going out to him. Like, yeah, I think
it's a bit like it was with Messi as well until a few years ago, where they were so good at Messi at scoring and dribbling that people almost overlooked how good his passing is. And there's Neymar is not a Messi level of passing, but it's a little bit like that with Neymar as well because of goals he scores and dribbling he does and skill moves and stuff. People forget also what types of passing he's got in him.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I just feel like, I don't know, if it was a smart deal, the wages weren't like extreme, we got other areas sorted. I just don't know how anyone can turn their nose up at Neymar. And I saw someone in the comments said, "Oh, get Bowen instead." Come on, man. Come on. What are we doing here? What are we doing here?
It might be a better long-term signing. You never know. But these days, knowing West Ham, Jarrod Bowen would probably cost double of what Neymar will cost. So, you know.
And saying that, bro, we want creativity, don't we? Like, we want some personality in this team and creativity. And Neymar brings both of those in abundance, you know? So, for me, if everything was sorted properly this summer, and considering he said he would die for Tuchel on the pitch, you know, they got a great relationship in themselves. Bro, just
he did say it. I just
Chelsea shirt with Neymar
more than he did a PSG. To be fair, like I need a bit more pressing out of you, lad.
Bro, a Neymar Chelsea shirt, bro. Just think of that. Going to the shop and buying a Chelsea Neymar.
The problem
shirt.
is Nike will probably ruin it with giving us a shit shirt.
Yeah, still, but it's got Neymar on the back, bro. Who cares?
There you go. Hey, see, I love when Con just hypes things. Whether they end up being that way, who cares? Who knows? It's just gonna be. But we're going to be happy about it. Price, what's your perspective on Neymar?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it'd be a great player for us. I just think it's quite ironic because a lot of Chelsea fans agreed that we was going to go away, and they were quite happy to go away from this kind of statement signing, big name, and they wanted Chelsea to become more smart and think about things rather than sign the superstars. So I don't know. I just kind of think people are going back on their words a bit in general from what I've seen over the last few days. But yeah, I mean, look, it'd be a great signing. But I just think, you know, is it sensible? I mean, we all want Tuchel to stay along, but we don't know how long Neymar would play under Tuchel.
Smart signings, unless his
you
wages
know,
are way
what's
lower
his wages? You know what I mean? Like, it's not.
Yeah.
People are just, you know, they're living up the transfer window. So.
And
I mean,
if his wages are lower than you'd think, we certainly wouldn't be the only ones in for him.
I mean, he's on 650k at PSG. We pay Lukaku 325k. Lukaku would have to go first off to get half of his wages covered. Like, it's just not. I don't think it's feasible.
Well,
but
you don't know whether he take a wage cut, whatever. He's not quite in the same prime he was when he moved for 222 million euros. Quite, but
I don't know. Right? I don't see him taking a half of 650k personally just to join Chelsea.
No. I don't see him halving it either. If I'm honest, and that's part of the problem. But
like, this is not the type of signing that I expect. A Boehly-led bid to bankroll personally.
It's not.
But bro, it's a mad signing though.
Yeah, but it
Chelsea
would go against
shirt,
everything.
Neymar, bro.
Yeah, but it
But
would go
forget about
against
everything, bro. It's a Neymar on the back of a Chelsea shirt. Bro.
No, but if we have this attitude, though, Con, we're going to be doing this every summer. We've got to move
But
away
bro,
from
there's
this.
not players like that at Neymar, bro. There's Messi, Ronaldo, and Neymar, Hazard. They're the 4 players in this generation that are just like, wow, these guys are ridiculous. Mbappe, I count as like the newer generation, but like, they're the guys, bro. Just to have Neymar, even if it's like one season, I know it's madness, bro. But I'd rather sign Neymar for like 70 million and pay him a ridiculous wage and spend 120 mil on a DM. That's for sure, bro. I want good vibes. If we're not going to compete next season, let's have some good vibes, man. We deserve it. We went through hell this season, so give me some good vibes. Give me some Neymar a bonus, bro. I'm all for that.
We certainly wouldn't be signing a player like Dembele who can't sort his keepy ups out in the presentation. Neymar can certainly sort his keepy uppies out. But yeah, there you go. By the way, Matthias or Matthias, however you want your name pronounced, I don't understand why you're here because no one here rates Werner. So if that's your problem, that if all of us don't rate Werner, we're all idiots. I don't understand why you're here. Why would you spend your time watching 4, in your opinion, idiots? But hey, each their own. Smash a like, though, and subscribe. But the last topic I quickly want to get through before we round this out is a bit of midfield talk. Now, Tchouaméni has reportedly made a decision, not between Chelsea anyway, but between Real Madrid and Liverpool, and has decided to go to Real Madrid. Now, our midfield options was, get Tchouaméni or Rice. It was always those two, essentially. Now, West Ham have apparently valued Declan Rice at 150 million pounds. There have been reports that if you offer them 120, they're going to find it difficult to reject. But what do we think? Now, Clutch, you always said that, but do you still see it as anywhere near possible? I mean, we've obviously also been linked to Sangare, however he's pronounced, Ibrahim Sangare. I mean, it's a French name, but Sangare, probably in French. 24 years old, obviously plays for PSV Eindhoven. 24 isn't even that young. Do you know what I mean? So, but he is one big mofo. Do you know what I mean? 6'3", hench midfielder. Certainly kind of what we're looking for, but I'm not sure if he would quite have the talent where I'm like, yeah, I want you to be our starting midfielder. Do you know what I mean? I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but how do you see the midfield situation developing, Clutch? And is there any of our midfielders that we own which have been out on loan, whether it's a Billy Gilmore or Ethan Ampadu, or I don't know if you can think of anybody else that you would consider for that situation now that Tchouaméni seems to be, off the table?
No, I don't think so. I think when you look at it, you think the targets that you could have got for that central defensive midfielder role would be your Rice or your Tchouaméni. I was always of the camp, I don't care. I probably always slightly lean towards Rice. I know Khan's going to hate me for saying that. But
it's never happening anyway. I don't know why fans keep saying Rice. It's never, ever happening.
Maybe.
Not this summer anyway. It's not happening.
I'd probably agree not this summer, but I think if you want to be serious, I know gestures.
I think it's financially possible if we don't spend.
It's not financially possible.
No, but if you think about of course it is, because
it's not.
Well, if we have 200 million to spend,
I think you're seeing at the 150.
You get him for 120. You spend on Kounde and theoretically Koulibaly together. You spend what? Just on that shy of 100 million, probably.
Chelsea
so that means
are not spending 100 million pounds on Declan Rice. I refuse to believe
that
they
might
would
be
do
true. That might be true, but I'm saying it would be financially possible with the apparent war chest that we have.
I think they'd reject that.
You're not looking at wing backs yet, but we're not linked to any anyway, other than Sosa. Do you know what I mean? And he wouldn't cost a lot of money anyway. So
I think they'd reject 100 million. West Ham are absolutely crazy bastards.
100 million, I'd agree. Apparently 120 is what it would take. Who knows? I mean, maybe sweeten the deal with Broja. Do I want to lose Broja? No. But if he doesn't want to have another loan, and I don't think he would get enough game time to be happy at Chelsea anyway, you might as well try it at least.
We have to put a buyback on Broja though if he goes. There's no way we can't have a buyback. I hope they do that if he goes. I think it's gonna be one of the ones that, yeah, like you said. I think if thing is, Broja depends on Lukaku though, right? Like Lukaku goes, he might find a way into the team, but I don't know. You think Lukaku's gonna stay, so who knows? I mean, depends. I just don't like the report earlier which said Chelsea are going to look to sell Broja because other clubs are obviously interested in our forwards, but they feel like there won't be as many offers as we'd like and stuff like that. Like that epitomizes Chelsea in the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, as I said that to you earlier already, I think part of the issue is, of course, us the money we'd ask for them, but also like especially at Timo Werner. I mean, came from Leipzig to Chelsea. There's only so many clubs that would want him that he would also want to go to. Like, just say theoretically, I don't know, Valencia come calling. If they somehow win the lottery and have the money for Timo Werner, he wouldn't want to go to Valencia. I mean, they probably couldn't afford his wages anyway, but he wouldn't want to go to Valencia. He's been in the midst of mediocrity in Spain for years. So he wouldn't want to go there. So that's part, I think, what the problem is in my head. But Clutch, if it's not Rice, what then in your head?
I don't know then. I mean, I'm very big on we need that CDM, and we need a good one. We need an established one. I've seen gestures put Casemiro. I don't think Casemiro is an option. I mean, I would like Casemiro. Well. Yeah, he's slow. Yeah, he's slow, but I think he's got great positioning, to be honest. I think he would be able to do it. I mean, he's one of the reasons why
I think FIFA is a little bit that makes people think he's slower than he actually is, unfortunately. Like, I'm not saying he's quick by any means.
Right, he's old as fuck as well. I saw he's like 32 or something.
I think he's like 29 or 28. I think
he's
like 28.
I don't see Casemiro as a valid option. Anyway.
I thought he was older than that. Fair enough.
He just turned 30 in February.
Right.
Yeah, no. But other than that, maybe Basuma, maybe. But I mean, who knows? I mean, for me, I think it was between Rice and Tchouaméni, and now that Tchouaméni's gone, Rice has to be the option you try to get the most.
There you go. I would probably agree. Now, let me quickly read out the super chat here by Miguel Rabinez is how I'm going to pronounce your name. Sorry if I butchered it, but I doubt it. Anyone suggesting Basuma? No big club is looking at him due to the court case. Club doesn't want any further negative publicity after the Roman saga. Now, I am not actually fully aware what the court case is. Pies, do you know?
No, I don't. And I don't know what... someone keeps commenting this under my post, by the way, as well. I don't think it's the same guy, but someone does keep saying, every time I mention Basuma, he mentions this. And yeah, my response to that was, why is he playing for Brighton then if there's an ongoing investigation? And they were like, well, he just can't.
You're
like,
innocent until proven guilty, so...
Yeah, but then why would that affect the club signing him, though? Like,
well, I guess if he does get found guilty, then you don't want to have freshly signed him.
I know, but like, why would you... I don't know. It's a weird situation.
As a player, sexual assault apparently, according to CFC Blues. Don't know if it's true. If it is true, he's a cunt. Shouldn't say that word on YouTube. Don't demonetize me, YouTube. I apologize, but he is apparently. If he's done that, do you know what I mean? It's not my fault. If he's apparently done that, but as just a footballer, baller, but not at the end though. So it doesn't really fix that problem anyway, in my opinion. He's just another Kanze in my head, which is not a bad thing by any means. But
he's the kind of profile in it. Like, he's really strong and tall and like really good at tackling those. So I think he could easily, like, you could kind of restrain him.
But does he have the passing to be the sitting DM we want?
Yeah, he's very good at passing. He's very
no. But I don't just mean through balls. I mean like the controlling a game passing.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's very press resistant, bro, from what I've seen.
Okay, I hear you. Con, let me ask you midfield situation. Now, Tchouaméni's gone. We're all a bit annoyed by that, obviously, because we decided against him last summer. Now, if Tuchel and the scouts and stuff felt not good enough last year, mate, sign him and loan him back to Monaco then, if that's the situation. Do you know what I mean? Like, they clearly all saw the potential. They were like, he's just not quite ready yet. then sign him and loan him back. Like we did it with Pulisic essentially. So what? Like I don't get that. I mean, people are talking about Ruben Neves. Is that his name? Ruben. First of all, don't want another Ruben here. We've already got one. But yeah, I mean, he's got a strike and a half in him, so that's something. But yeah, good passing, but he's one where I think he's genuinely a bit slow. But to be honest, might also be FIFA lying to me. Who knows? But Con, what's your opinion on the midfield situation at the moment?
It's kind of annoying actually because it's a very limited market right now. There's not many, top class DMs out there. So Tuchel looks like going Real Madrid. Kind of sucks. We could have gone for 40 mil, but we've got Saul instead. Better call Saul. Yeah, and then you got Declan Rice, 120 million. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous for a DM. Yeah, so that's not happening. And if it happens, I'm really going to be annoyed at this football club. You got Basuma, obviously. No club really wants to take the chance just in case he does get found guilty. Who really wants to take that chance? I don't think we would. You got his name Singare, something like that from
PSV.
PSV, that's right, yeah. 15, 20 million people leaking about. I don't know. I haven't watched him. Can't really say, but it's such a limited market. But we do need one. We don't want one holding DM again. If Georgie leaves this summer, it's got to be a big, big problem. Big, big problem. I think we need to keep him. I don't know, man. I don't know. Billy Gilmore and Purdue, 2 players we can throw in the mix. I don't know, man.
Purdue and Billy Gilmore, I think they could both probably be used as options, but I don't think we should be seeing them as, we want to replace our starting DM. I don't think either of them should be considered.
You see that?
No, I agree with that.
As well.
I totally
Did you
agree
see
with
that thing that I posted about the guy who's close to Gilmore's family? Said if he doesn't get game time next season, he wants to leave on a permanent.
Well, I'm sure game time. I'm sure he'd be okay if he was the second choice. Like that's still plenty of games over the season.
Yeah, but Tuchel wants Gallagher in the squad though. So like,
but do you think they compete with each other? They only compete with each other in my head if Gilmore.
Well, I wouldn't play
more like
Gallagher. For me, Gallagher, I've said this, does not make any sense in our formation, like at all.
I agree with you.
I don't understand.
I think he's too good not to use. Hence, why it's part of why we need to change the formation. We've got too many 8s anyway. We can't sell all of them, and then at some point we'll change the formation. Then we've got rid of all of them, and then we're fucked again.
I think
like tomorrow now. That's what, in my opinion, would be if we sell Gallagher now. Now we might not need him or know how to use him, but if we sold him, we'd figure out we'd want him in a year later, and then we're fucked. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think it depends on bids for a lot of these youngsters after. So
it's just like the DM market right now is so limited. It's like there's really not many options. Kamara going to Villa for like that's annoying. Like, why couldn't we have been over there?
Apparently, 175k. Do you know what I mean? Villa affording that. We couldn't even give Rudiger 230 a bit earlier. Man, mental.
What about Kessie? Is he still available? Has he got any pre-contract?
He's a free agent, I think. Yeah, it's a good shot.
He's still not extended, even though Milan won the league now.
I'm pretty sure.
The reports are he's going to Barcelona, so I wouldn't even worry about him.
I swear Barcelona are trying to sign about 17 players, and apparently
Barcelona are like hyping everything up, and then they're trying to sign
Lewandowski and then Alonso and Aspi, and that's it.
Barcelona are trying to sell De Jong.
Well, they're trying to sign Rafinha as well. Remember, they've agreed personal terms with Rafinha. Like, what's this?
Well, that's with Dembele going, I guess. But true. To be fair, they are selling De Jong, and it looks like Barca.
They might do. I don't know if
they'll try to. Obviously not the player we need, but would you want De Jong, Con?
Yeah, I love De Jong. I absolutely love De Jong. I think he's fantastic.
You look a bit like De Jong, I reckon.
Oh, thank you, bro. That's a compliment.
At least from the picture we always see of you.
I think with De Jong, bro, like he can sit. It's not his best position, but he can sit. I think if we play a double pivot of like a De Jong, a Jorginho, that would
people forget what a player he is because he's went to Barca.
Yeah, I would take that. Anything. And people say it's not the right profile, but there's not really the right profile out there for us anyway. Frankie De Jong, he can do the job.
Mate, he's even played centre back for Barcelona at times when they had injury problems. So like he can certainly do that. And just people, please stop about Julian Weigl. Like you're giving me cancer. Literally, stop talking about him. He wasn't even good enough for fucking Dortmund. And you guys think, Pulisic isn't good enough. Man, stop talking. Nah, honestly, I know Tuchel. Yeah, I don't give a shit. He plays for Benfica and went there from Dortmund. Like, nah, I'm sorry. I know I'm harsh, but I cannot handle talk about it. Konrad Laimer. Now, he's just a Duracell battery, really. Not very good at anything, but will not stop running.
I saw he was linked to Man United yesterday.
Wouldn't
Apparently,
surprise me with the football style
Rangnick
that
or
Ten
something.
Hag plays would probably work quite well.
Yeah, I think Rangnick knows him or whatever. Also,
Yeah, from Leipzig. A baller, honestly, baller. One of our better players at Austria, but doesn't fit our system at all, in my opinion. Would work at Liverpool, though, in my opinion. But anyway, have you had anything else to say there, Con, before any of us interrupted you, or are you done with that one?
No, I'm just done. Just limited marketing DMs. Not many options. Don't sign Declan Rice for 120.
There you go. Fair play. Fair play. Clutch, your thoughts before I leave the kind of your last thoughts before I go to Pice with his last thoughts, and also please do and send them to me. Just want to have them as memes and send them to people when they piss me off. Go on, Clutch.
Not much. Just hopefully this takeover happens with today and the next couple hours.
Wait. Nizar's saying that PSG versus Real Madrid for Tchouaméni, that Chelsea could still apparently still enter the race, but they're waiting for the takeover to happen. That's interesting.
Bring the lube. We need to slip in there immediately. Get it done, boys.
I just saw his article. Yeah.
Bloody hell.
There
Also,
you go.
what Paisley said here, by the way, is that apparently Neymar wants to stay at PSG, according to Fabrizio. So, fair enough. Ruin that. It could have given us another week or so of a little bit bantering around with the idea of getting Neymar. Didn't have to ruin it straight away. Come on now. Sorry, Clutch. Go on.
I don't want to say anything after your comment. I'm going to leave it at that.
Fair enough. Pies, do you want to say something after my comment?
About who?
Just anything. Any last comments about
no.
Todd Boehly's on your own transfer targets, whatever else?
No, you can go on if you want.
There you go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Todd Boehly, a new era has started or will start any minute now. Watch Chelsea only announced it tomorrow morning, but I've got plans tomorrow anyway. And here we are. It's as official as it gets without being official. Just to clarify for people that might not have been here at the start, everything has been approved, but the Premier League is passed the test by the Premier League to take over. It's been granted or approved of by the UK government as it has been by Europe or by the EU, I think. Or was it Portugal themselves because Abramovich is a Portuguese citizen? No idea how he's that, by the way, but sure, mate. But yeah, so everything other than, I think the money is probably not quite flown across. Flown is not the word I was looking for. Anyway, being transferred. But once that's done, everything's going to be announced. Everything's going to be official according to Matt Law. Chelsea are preparing the announcement. Then hopefully, we can... Price, by the way, do you know once it's done, are we automatically not sanctioned anymore? Or is it then another thing that the government need to do? Or is it as soon as it's the takeover is done?
I'm pretty sure the sanction. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the government, because the government put the sanctions on us in the first place. So, I mean,
but did they ever actually directly sanction Chelsea, or were we only ever sanctioned because through Roman? And as the second Abramovich doesn't officially own us anymore, old sanctions should be gone, surely.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that's why we're getting all this transfer news as well.
Yeah,
because otherwise I don't think it would be getting it. So yeah,
true, very true. All right, boys. Well, here's to Todd Boehly. Let's hope it's going to be another great year of Chelsea Football Club. Will he surpass what Roman Abramovich has done? Probably not. Maybe he can emulate it. Also unlikely. But hey, you've got to split the Roman Abramovich era into part at least. The early bits where we won everything domestically, especially the league, and the later bits where we won everything in Europe. So hey, I fancy Europe, but if we could go back to winning a few Premier Leagues, I'd be quite down for that. So, Todd, if you could make that happen, get it done, son. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you're still here, I appreciate you very much. Subscribe if you haven't already. That'd be fantastic. By the way, Conference League final about to start in about 9 minutes. Come on, Roma. Come on, Tammy. Come on, Jose. Hope they do it. Yeah, good luck to them. But yeah, subscribe if you haven't already. Please do. Smash the like button on your way out. It doesn't cost you any money. Barely cost you any time. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. Big shout out to my 3 wonderful guests. Please follow all of their socials and podcasts and websites. Their links are all down in the description below. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up to Chelsea, upwards and onwards. And I'll see you next time.